Hello everyone and welcome to my channel if you are new. If you're not new, welcome back to my channel. My name is Marina and today is a long-awaited video that I've been pushing off because I genuinely didn't feel like doing it. But it's a new year. Happy New Year, it's 2024. So I need to reflect on all of the books that I read last year because not gonna lie, last year when it comes to my reading was kind of a blur due to all the traveling and stuff. I was going back through my reading journal and my storygraph to see how I wanted to wrap up the past year in terms of reading, and I didn't remember over half the books I read. So that's always a great feeling, you know? But I did reach my reading goal. My goal was to read 50 books this year. And I read, I think, either 51 or 52. So today, I'm going to be tier ranking all of them, every single one. Now, I don't know how I'm gonna do that again because I don't remember reading a lot of them. To be fair, a lot of the ones I read last year were read at like the first half of 2023 when I was still in England. And yeah, the reading portion of that time was definitely a blur. I was getting through books really quickly over there because I had all the time in the world, so that's a good thing. But like the downside of doing that is that when you get through books like that back to back to back, you kind of just forget them. At least in my case, that's how it works. So yeah, I'm just gonna rank them and see how that goes for me to determine which ones were the best and which ones were the worst. Because yeah, I could look on my storygraph and see which ones I gave high reviews, which ones I gave really bad reviews, but that's boring. So yeah, we're gonna tier rank because you guys know I love me a good tier ranking. If you guys didn't watch my last tier ranking video where I tier ranked romance tropes, you should check that out. I genuinely think this is fun. So I guess the best way to start off is to show you my rankings. So the first top tier right here is change the trajectory of my life. Now this may seem dramatic, but it's not, because I read a decent amount of good books this year, which kind of was my reading goal, because the year before that I was reading a lot of hyped up books that I just didn't understand the hype for, and I was very disappointed. In 2023, I just wanted to read books that I actually enjoyed that don't get a lot of hype, and a lot of those books ended up changing the trajectory of my life. Like, it's true. So yeah, that's the top ranking. Second one is Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up, complimentary. I mean this as like one of the highest compliments, okay? If you have me screaming, crying, throwing up, and I just can't get over the book and it low-key puts me in a book slump, then you did your job, I think. Like, if it has that much of an impact on me, you're great. You're doing amazing. You're just not up there, but you did something for me. You didn't change the trajectory of my life, but you left me feeling things, left me with a big impact, and I will never forget you as a book. The third tier, they can't all be winners. This tier is for books that I did enjoy, but they're kind of like meh. Like, they don't deserve a high up spot, but they also don't deserve to be like kaplooey at the bottom. When you try your best, but you don't succeed. This is for books that I know were trying to give their all, or maybe they weren't trying. And that makes it even worse, but they just weren't good in my opinion. Like, I wanted to like it probably, but it just didn't do what I needed to do. And then the last tier is I would like my time and or money back. There doesn't need to be any explaining for that. It's just books that I would have liked my time and my money back after reading them because they were a waste of time because I didn't end up liking them in the end. Okay, these are all the books I read this year. I guess we're gonna start off with the first one. Okay, so Monograph is a book that I talked about in my last wrap up. It's a book that I read for class, a poetry book, I think, and I hated it. I would like my time and our money back. I did not pay money for this book, thank goodness, but the time that I spent reading it, oh, give it all back to me. That teacher, loved him, loved the professor, but he deserved jail for making me read this. Granted, the time I spent reading it wasn't a lot because it's a poetry book. I think I got through it in like maybe like 20-30 minutes max, but oh my goodness, I did not like this book at all. The Hunger Games. Ooh, okay. So for series, I think I'm just gonna do the series books back to back instead of going through this whole line to get to them. Now, I did enjoy this book, as you guys saw in that one video where I spent like almost 2 hours talking about the series. I did enjoy almost every book in the series. However, they're not all ranked the same. If you saw my reviews for them in my previous wrap up, you know that like the reviews are all ranging from no less than 4 stars to 5, but they're ranged differently. So I don't really know where to put this. The first book is definitely not in Change the Trajectory of My Life. Though it had potential to, I just feel like it definitely would have if I didn't see the movie beforehand. But because I saw the movie and I already knew what the book was about, where the plot was heading, it didn't really do much for me. But it did leave me screaming, crying, throwing up, I believe. I think that is the truth. Whereas Catching Fire, oh, what a life changer in every way. Like, bad bitch of the series? Yes. Yes. Mockingjay, they can't all be winners. And that's okay. You know, my respect for Suzanne Collins doesn't decrease at all with Mockingjay. It just leaves me thinking, like, what was her mindset when making this? Especially after a book like Catching Fire. Like, she couldn't do it again. Not back to back. And I respect it. She tried her best. And then, of course, oh, if I could put this in a tier higher, I would. But I do think Catching Fire and The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes is like up there. Like they kind of level each other out. Like I can never really choose between the two. Though I do think I gave Songbirds of Snakes or whatever, I gave that book, I think, 0.5 more than Catching Fire in my review. But they're ranked in the same. They both changed the trajectory of my life. The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes ended up being one of my favorite books of the year, along with being one of my favorite movies of the year. So it has to be in top place. Next book is actually a sequel. First book is down here, The Gilded Ones, Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. This isn't my first time reading this. The first time I read it was a few years ago, and I reread it in 2023 to prepare me for finally reading the sequel, which I will also put in Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. I read this, I think, during books, how much I read in a week video, I don't know. But yeah, this series, because it is a series, I think the 3rd book comes out this year. I saw a cover for it. No one talk to me. No one look at me. I didn't know the 3rd book was coming out this year. If I would have known, that would have definitely been in my previous video where I talked about my most anticipated reads for 2024, because oh, I will be picking it up and I will be reading it. Next book is also part of a series. Now, I don't think I remember how these books go in order. I think Spearcrest Night is the first one, so I'm gonna do this one first. See, this is tricky. If y'all know me, y'all know how I feel about this first book in this series. I read this series on a whim because someone on Twitter that I follow, that I'm mutuals with, was talking about it and posted a page from it, and I was like, oh, let me read it. I had no idea what I was walking into. The first book in this series is a bully romance. I don't know where to put it because I, for some reason, thoroughly enjoyed it. Like I gave it 3 stars, I think 3 stars, 3.5. It brought out a different side of me that I didn't know existed, but I haven't read any bully romances since. So I want to say this is a one-off. I don't think I would like my time back. Yeah, when you try your best, but you don't succeed. That's where Spearcrest Night goes. Because my thoughts for the book still leave me a little bit surprised with myself. Like the fact that I actually sat down, read this book in a day, like I was eating it up. I don't know what was going on with me, but this series itself is actually pretty decent. Let me go to the others. Okay, I think Spearcrest Prince comes after that. And that one definitely gets in the tier I would like my time and or money back. I did not pay money for this series. The time I put into reading the sequel, specifically Spearcrest Prince, I would like it back. The second book was not good. I liked the main girl. However, the guy, oh, a menace to society, kind of scared me more than the bully from the first book. And I don't even know how, because the second one is arranged marriage. Why am I like screaming, crying, throwing up negatively at this man? In bottom tier for a reason. Don't read it. However, the one book you should read in this series, to be honest, the only book you should read in this series, if I'm being completely real with you, Spearcrest Saints. This changed the trajectory of my life. I could talk about this book forever. One of my favorite reads of this year. One of the best romance books I've ever read. It is that girl. It is so good. Like, oh, I think about it and I'm just like, I'm a changed person. It's that serious for me. I'm not joking. Like, if you're going to read any book in this 4-book, I think it's going to be 5-book series, read Spearcrest Saints. The author, Aurora Reed, I think that's her name, did what she had to do in the best way possible. So that brings me to the fourth book, Spearcrest Wolf. I think Spearcrest Saints and Spearcrest Wolf came out back to back this year. Spearcrest Wolf, I'm gonna say this one left me screaming, crying, throwing up. It's not at the same tier as Spearcrest Saints. That's not possible. But this one was really, really good. It had a black girl as the main lead, so it would have been impossible for me not to like it, I'm gonna be honest. Like I said, the only one you should really give a chance is Spearcrest Saints, but if you want to read them all, go ahead. I think the series is done. I really hope it is, because if the author's writing a fifth book about a character that I think she's gonna write about, I don't want it. We could end it here and be so fine. Like, I don't need another book. Oh, Nick and Charlie, screaming, crying, throwing up. This is a novella in the Heartstopper universe. I think this novella takes place after volume 5, which just came out a few weeks ago. But I think the events of this novella happen after volume 5 of Heartstopper, but this novella itself, I think, came out a year or two ago. The timeline wise of Heartstopper and the Alice Oseman universe has always kind of confused me. I don't know where this places, but I got the chance to read all of Alice Oseman's books this year. So I think I'm gonna get through should I get through those in order? No, there's no point. There's no point, because I don't know the order, but I had a really good time with almost every single one. And Nick and Charlie was just really, really cute. Nick and Charlie, the novella, is just so wholesome and cute, and it shows you their relationship outside of the graphic novels. That's a little bit more serious. Somehow even more serious than the Heartstopper graphic novels, because those can get a little dark. It shows you the ins and outs of their relationship and the struggles of them, like going away to college and stuff and being separated. And it's kind of a tearjerker, but it's really, really cute. You guys know I highly recommend Heartstopper, but especially the Alice Oseman books. Like, her novels in this universe and just her novels in general, so good. The Grim Reaper's Lawyer, they can't all be winners. I remember having a good time with this book, but I don't think I'd put it in a top ranking, and I don't think I'd put it anywhere near a bottom either. It's just kind of somewhere in the middle. It kind of reminded me of Wattpad fan fiction, but like in a good way. Like, I had a good time. I don't know what I was expecting. I kind of just went in hoping to get at least a laugh out of it, and I did. But then I got so much more in terms of like the world that this book takes place in. It was very interesting to read about. But I don't really like first person narrations in books, and that's what this was, and it kind of made me cringe on myself. But I overall did like the story, and I think this is going to be a series. I'll read the rest of the series just to see. Red, White, and Royal Blue changed the trajectory of my life. This is not my first time reading Red, White, and Royal Blue. I read it back in the summer before the movie came out, just to like refresh myself, because I read it the first time a few years ago and I loved it. It's still one of my favorite rom-com books. It's just such like a heartfelt, warm feeling, comforting type of book for me, and it hasn't changed in the past few years. It still has changed the trajectory of my life. The movie is good if you don't compare it to the book. Okay, now we get on to Heartstopper Volume 5. Now, this is either going and screaming, crying, throwing up, or change the trajectory of my life. I don't know. I don't know. I think for the most part with this volume, I was screaming, crying, throwing up, because my babies are growing up, and it really hit me like hard in this one. Like, wow, that's how you write character growth. Like, Alice Oseman just gets it. She just gets it. She understands it. I don't know if it's one of my favorite volumes. I still think there's nothing that's going to beat volume 3. And then in second place, it'd be volume 4. So I guess with this one, it might be third place. Oh no. Okay. I'm not going to do a November/December book wrap up. All of the books I read during those months are in this tier ranking. So I'm going to briefly review those. Iron Flame was one that I finished in December. But I guess I should talk about the first one first, Fourth Wing. I made a whole rating vlog for this, so I don't really need to explain my thoughts on this one. I guess I'd put it in They Can't All Be Winners. If you saw my video, you know I enjoyed it. I had a really good time with it. It was kind of ridiculous, but like in the best way possible. And Yeah, unserious fantasy fun. Same with Iron Flame. Now, Iron Flame, it took me a little over a month to read it because of how big it is, first of all, and also because I was trying to read it during final season because I'm just not smart. So I don't know why I was trying to do that to myself, but I did. Yeah, it was a doozy. In terms of world building, I feel like it was better. However, it was very slow, and the romance of it really took me out of the actual fantasy element. Where in the first book, you know that you're getting a straight romantasy, like it's romantasy to its core. Whereas in Iron Flame, you could tell that she was trying to do more in terms of the fantasy aspect of the book, but the romance really started to piss me off, like when I got a third into it, which is also why I started to slow down reading it. I think I ended up giving it like a 3 stars, I believe. I don't know, my reading journal is like across the room and I don't feel like getting up to get it. But yeah, I think I gave it like around 3 stars, which is the same as what I gave Fourth Wing. I don't know if I'll read the 3rd book if I'm being honest. Actually, I know I won't. I know I won't, because after finding out some things about the author, I'm kind of just like, I'm good. But yeah, this was Iron Flame, Fourth Wing. They're in the same tier of they can't all be winners, and these two are definitely not winners. But I did have fun reading both of them. Excuse me while I ugly cry. Did it change the trajectory of my life? No, I think it just left me screaming, crying, throwing up. This book is so cute, and I need some network, some streaming service to pick it up and make it into a limited series or a movie. I don't care which one. I'm fighting for it because these characters, this story, oh, if I read this in high school, I know I would have been a changed person. Yeah, screaming, crying, throwing up, one of my favorite movies. Books. Joya Goffney can do no wrong in my eyes. So yeah, I need to read the other books that she has written, but that could be for a different time. Okay, Collided. This was the first book I think I read in 2023, so I have no recollection of it. I know that it's a part of that Formula One series that Lauren Asher wrote. It's the 2nd or 3rd book in it. I don't remember. I remember really liking it though. I remember liking it more than the first book. It left me feeling a lot of emotions, I'm not gonna lie. It was at the beginning of the year, so I don't really remember it. I remember a lot from the beginning of the year, a lot of stress, a lot of packing, a lot of flights. I don't remember this book. So though I'm sure it left an impact on me from what I can remember, I don't remember it plot wise, so I can't really do anything with it here. Now that I'm looking at this, I think I'm gonna move Iron Flame down because yeah, that makes more sense to me. Percy Jackson and the Olympians. This is the Lightning Thief, I think. I don't know why I used the new covers because I can't differentiate the new covers between each other, but changed the trajectory of my life as it did for most people. I reread the first 2 Percy Jackson books during the summer, and I think I'm gonna finish out the rest of the series this year. I've read the series before, read it for the first time a few years ago. Really, really good. And now that the show is out and it has also changed the trajectory of my life, I'm getting back to my Percy Jackson phase. I think I'm gonna finish out the rest of the books within like the next few months. But yeah, the first book changed the trajectory of my life. 3rd book, screaming, crying, throwing up. Persebeth, babies, love them with all my heart. Now, in terms of like all the books in the series, the 2nd one is definitely not the best. It could arguably say that that's the worst one, but the other books aren't in this tier, so I'm being nice. Before I Let Go, change the trajectory of my life. If you know, you know. I talk about this book all the time, along with Heartstopper. I don't need to say anything else. Delilah Green Doesn't Care. Screaming, crying, throwing up. Very accurate. I just love women. So I love women, and I love Delilah Green so much. She's one of my book crushes of this past year. I just like seeing women be in love and happy, and that's what this gave me. If you guys have any other sapphic rom-com book recommendations, please give them to me. Next is Solitaire by Alice Oseman. Changed the trajectory of my life. Oh my god. I can't talk about this book enough. I can't. I won't sit here and go on a ramble about how much this book means to me, how much Tori means to me as a character. But just know that this book, I wouldn't be who I am today without this book. I read this book at the beginning of the year when I was in England. It takes place in the Heartstopper universe. This book is about Charlie from Heartstopper. It's about his sister, Tori, his older sister. She's the main character in this, and she's just going through it. She's just a really depressed girly who's going through all her emotions by herself and needs help. And then she meets this guy named Michael Holden, and they form a really pure, innocent relationship that makes you feel good on the inside, even though the book itself is kind of sort of scarring. Like, don't read this if you're in a really bad mindset. Don't do that. No, don't do that. But it's so good. It's so good. And the fact that Heartstopper came from this book, oh, where Alice Oseman was cooking. She was cooking. I want to know what her mind is like in there. Because for those of you guys that don't know, Solitaire came first, and then she wrote the Heartstopper graphic novels after, because Charlie and Nick were featured in Solitaire as like background characters, and she wanted to dive more into that. Like, this kind of started it all. Give her her flowers, please. Okay, next book is Brown Girl Dreaming by Jacqueline Woodson. I read this book for school, and it did change the trajectory of my life. I read a lot of good books for school, okay? Monograph was just the odd one out. But Brown Girl Dreaming was really good. It's technically a memoir told from Jacqueline Woodson's 5-year-old self in prose of poetry, and it's so beautifully written. It's technically a middle grade book, but I think anyone of all ages obviously can read it. It's just so good. I could have finished this in one sitting if I wanted to, but I really like what the teacher did. She made us go through and read it for like a little over a month to dissect every part of the book, and I think that made me appreciate it so much more. So yeah, highly recommend. Okay, final offer. This is also a Lauren Asher book. I think this is the last book in the Dreamland Billionaire series. Everyone has mixed feelings about this book. Some either really hate it or they like it. I've never heard anyone say that they love it. From what I remember, I gave this book, I think, either 4.5 or 5 stars. I don't know what my rating would be now. I haven't reread it since, but I've sat down with the plot. They can't all be winners, and that's okay. And I'm gonna leave it at that. I'm gonna leave it at that. It's the last book in the series. I wanted to love it, and in the moment, I think I did, because it was my favorite character's book, and so I was looking at it with like rose-tinted lenses. But now that I think about it, the criticism is valid, and that's that. They can't all be winners is where the brightest light of sunshine is going. This is a cute book. It's not one of my favorites, but it was cute. I would recommend it if you're looking for something cute, kind of easy to read. I don't know, check trigger warnings first. It's about a girl who gets sexually assaulted and is trying to heal her life. Loveless by Alice Oseman. This one's going in They Can't All Be Winners. This might be my least favorite out of all of Alice Oseman's books. Not saying it's a bad book. It's just, it was one of the most slow-paced ones for me, and it kind of left me a little bored. Like, this took me a long time to read. The characters were great, very fleshed out. The found family in the book was my favorite part of it. I just really couldn't get into this one as much. Maybe it's because it's not in the Heartstopper universe, but that's not true, because another book that's in here is on the Heartstopper universe, and I ended up really loving that book. So I don't know. This one, I was just like, could have done more. Now we have An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This book left me screaming, crying, throwing up. This one also took me a little longer to read, but that's because the writing style wasn't something I was used to. This is my first time reading a book from this author, and she has a beautiful writing style, but I was not in the mind set to read something as kind of heavy as this book. So it took me a while to read it, but by the time I finished it, wow, screaming, crying, throwing up indeed. That ending still kind of leaves me feeling a bit weird, but the book itself is just really good, and I would highly recommend it to anyone who would want to read it. A more serious toned romance. Miss Marvel No Normal. This is the first volume in the Miss Marvel comics, I'm pretty sure. It's going in They Can't All Be Winners, not because it's not a top tier graphic novel, comic, whatever you want to call it. It's just the fact that I don't think it left me screaming, crying, throwing up, and it didn't change the trajectory of my life. It was just a really good, cute, fun, slice of life superhero comic that I needed. I just wanted to read something to make me feel better, and that's what it was. But it wasn't anything that's comparable to the rest of these up here. Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating. Ooh, screaming, crying, throwing up. Again, please recommend me sapphic romances. This is a YA one. Delilah Green is an adult. I'll take whatever you hand to me. But Hani and Ishu's Guide to Fake Dating was so freaking cute. So adorable. I talked about it in my last wrap up. Ooh, so good. Okay. This one is a book I read for class, Bingo Love by T. Franklin, I believe. This is in the same class where I read Brown Girl Dreaming. It was an African American literature class. This graphic novel is so freaking cute. I highly recommend it. This is also a sapphic romance between two, at the time when they first meet, they're teenagers in the 1960s, and they slowly start to form a relationship, and then for some reason they get separated and they find love later in life. But later in life, when they're older, they have their own separate families and stuff to worry about. So it's like finding love through all of the challenges that they go through in society and just like internally as well. Such a well-written graphic novel. Like, this really did change the trajectory of my life. Almost every book. So the next book I read is Better Than the Movies by Lynn Painter. Now, I know a lot of people love this book. A lot of people love this author in general. Like, apparently she makes really good standalone, cute YA romances along with adult romances. This is my first book I've read by her and the only thing I've read by this author. I have not read any of her other books. It was okay. I didn't really understand the hype though, so when you try your best but you don't succeed, I feel like I'd like it better if it were a movie than I actually enjoyed the book. Next book is actually a sequel to Delilah Green Doesn't Care that I totally forgot about. Astrid Parker Doesn't Fail. Now, though I did forget that this was in my list, I do think I rank it higher than Delilah Green Doesn't Care. I really, really love Astrid Parker as a character. I think the way that I like the way that she fleshes out all of the characters in this series, but especially Astrid Parker. And I love an Ice Queen type of character, and she gave me that. Yeah, I ended up really, really, really enjoying it. Like, a little bit more than Delilah Green. Not by much, but I did end up enjoying it a lot more. Like, it did change the trajectory of my life. I actually got the third book for Christmas. If you guys want, I could do like a holiday book haul or whatever. It's not that many books. Highly Suspicious and Unfairly Cute. This is by one of my favorite authors of all time, Talia Hibbert. Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. This is, I think, her first YA novel. She usually writes adult romances. An example would be the Brown Sisters trilogy. I love those books. I haven't read anything else besides those books and this one. This one was really, really cute. It did have me screaming, crying, throwing up. It was just a really wholesome, cute teen love story. The next book is also from an author that I want to read all of their books this year that I already mentioned. The Kingmaker by Kenny Ryan. I really liked this book. However, I don't know where I would put it. It would be between these two tiers. It's not Before I Let Go. Like, I don't think anything's beating that book of hers. I think it would have to go in Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. I don't know. When I think about this book, I think of Scandal. If anyone has seen Scandal, it's giving that. It's like a romance between two people who are kind of in different worlds, but they somehow work, especially in the terms of like politics. Yeah, I just found it really interesting. Politically, it was really nice to read about. I like Kennedy Ryan's books because they always have like something else going for it besides the romance. It's not just romance, though that is part of the main story. You're finding out all of these different things through characters about different parts of life and different aspects of life. And The Kingmaker does that with the characters in it. I still need to read the second one though, because I'm pretty sure it's just a duology. So I have the second one. I don't know why I haven't read it yet, but I might do that this year. The next book is another Alice Oseman book, Radio Silence. Ooh, this is for the depressed girlies with imposter syndrome in academia. Alice Oseman books make me feel so seen in a way that I haven't felt in so long, especially when it comes to like my inner child. So like Radio Silence is a book about a character from Heartstopper, Aled. He's in the graphic novels. He's not in the show Heartstopper. He's one of Charlie's best friends. So when I heard that he got his own book, I was like, oh, that's so interesting. Especially since he's not in the show. I was like, what could this possibly be about? It exceeded all expectations, and the expectations were already pretty high, mind you. So yeah, it's just a really, really good book. about being a teenager and having fun while being a teenager and not worrying too much about your future. Don't let school or academic stress you out too much where you can't just live your life, you know? If I read these when I was in high school, I definitely would be a changed person. And I mean that in like a literal sense. I'm not being dramatic. Like, this book did change the trajectory of my life in the same sense that Solitaire did, but for different reasons. And I don't think I can go into those in this video or else we'll be here forever. But just know, both of these books, amazing. Amazing. Like, Alice Oseman, never put your pen down. You're always cooking, and I respect you for it. Like, let the girl cook. Next book is another one that changed the trajectory of my life, 7 Days in June by Tia Williams. This book is phenomenal. Kind of in the same way that Before I Let Go was phenomenal, where I just love reading about Black love. Like, the great times, the hard times, the real, raw, emotional times, especially when it comes to the angst of it. Like, this book is so angsty. I would check trigger warnings before reading it, but I would highly recommend it, especially if like you're in a romance mood that's like kind of soulmate heavy. Like, this book really shows me that soulmates kind of should exist in a way. Like, I believe that they do. Free to Love. Now, this is a short, I wouldn't even say it's a novel or a novella. It's just like a little short piece that Kennedy Ryan wrote for Juneteenth. I say this did leave me screaming, crying, throwing up. I think it's in the same universe as her basketball series books that I never remember the name of ever, but it's kind of in that world. Like, the characters are from that series, so I kind of went in blind. I just read it on Juneteenth because it's a short story that was made for Juneteenth, written by one of my favorite authors, so of course I'm gonna read it, but I don't know any of the lore. But the characters, their short little story made me really happy, made me in the mood for Juneteenth, and it did what needed to be done. Shipwrecked by Olivia Dade. I would like my time and or money back. I can't express in words how much I despise this book. I think I ranted about it in my book wrap up. Yeah, I just really do not like this book. I think it's a part of the Spoiler Alert series by Olivia Dade. I know that's a pretty popular series. I know some people really enjoy it. I didn't know it was a part of a series. I kind of went in blind, didn't know any of the characters. I didn't know it was the third book in a series or fourth, whatever. I just wanted a cute, fun rom-com, and I saw that it was available on Libby, so I read it. But oh my gosh, I cannot stand this book. Like, thinking about it now, it gives me a headache. Shipwrecked, I would like my time back. Did not pay money for it, thank goodness. But ooh, same with Flawless. This book is a part of, I think, the Spring Chestnut Springs, the cowboy series that TikTok loves. Okay, this is the first book in that series, and I did not like it. I would like my time back. I did not like this book at all, and it kind of turned me away from the rest of the series, though I heard that they get better as you read them, but no, I'm good. I don't know. I like small town romances, which is what this was. Cowboys, though, I don't know. Like, maybe if you guys have any other recommendations, I'd be down, because I've had an obsession with My Life with the Walter Boys on Netflix, and that's small town ranch cowboy romance down. Like, ooh, heavily involved in the plot, kind of. So yeah, I think I'm open to romances like that, because I'm literally obsessed with that show. I've watched it at least 10 times over holiday break, but I don't know, something about this book I just couldn't get into. I think it was the characters and the writing. I just wasn't for me, but I'm open to some others if you guys have recommendations. Now we move on to R.F. Kuang. Ooh, the author who I love, who is also the bane of my existence. Let's discuss. I really liked The Poppy War. I read this when I was in the UK as well, and it took me forever to read because of how deep the plot is. Like, the plot, the storyline, the characters, the premise, the world. It was a lot to read. And I think that's like a theme with R.F. Kuang's, like, at least fantasy books. She really knows how to like captivate you into this world and have you like analyzing every little thing. And I was doing that because I really enjoyed what I was reading. However, I need to be in the right mindset to read one of her books. I need to be in like available. I need to have free time to read a book like this. Hence why I haven't finished Babel yet. But I do want to read her stuff because she's just so talented. Like, this woman, Ooh, she's cooking. She is heating up the stove and the oven at the same time. She's cooking. Vern the Custodian. I really enjoyed this book. I read it in November. It's a graphic novel. I read it during work. I read it like in 30 minutes. It was so freaking good. Every plot twist was eating. The art style was eating. How do I explain it? It's about a guy named Vern who goes to live with his grandmother and parents because he's facing burnout and he just needs to be surrounded by people that support him and love him because like he's just tired of the world. So relatable. He ends up getting a job at a place that his grandparents used to work at, and he gets the job of being the custodian, and somehow some way that leads to him having to save the universe. I can't go into depth as to how or why, but just know that like the multiverse is involved. Global warming, climate change is a big part of the book. Just like making sure to keep a lookout for the planet, basically the premise of it. And I really enjoyed it. Next book is a sequel, so I'm gonna do the first one first. Restore Me. Can't all be winners. I really liked Restore Me. I read this one on my Kindle and I really liked it. I've only heard good things about this from people on Book Talk, specifically Black Book Talk, and I trust the people over there. So they do is talk about this series by J.L. Seegers, and I finally got the chance to read it. The first book, it was really good. However, it can't compete with the second one here. The second one is in Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. And I'm still not even done with it. I need to read part 3. Because technically, part 1 and 2 were kind of 2 separate books. But I only have one picture for them because it's the same book. But anyway, Revive Me, Restore Me. They're both part of the New Haven series. I would highly recommend it. Check trigger warnings, of course. But I would highly recommend it. Like, this is Black love, Black soulmate-ism to its core, like to its deep-rooted core. Like I said, I really, really like the second one more, but I think that's because it's fleshed out a bit more, and I appreciate that. Like, each part came out at different times. However, I'm reading it now when all 3 parts are out, happily, because I don't know how y'all waited in between parts. Like, that's kind of crazy. Really good, especially when it comes to like found family. I really got the found family aspect in this book more so than in this book, to be honest, but really good romances. Look up trigger warnings because these books dive into some pretty heavy topics. Reggie and Delilah's Year of Falling, Screaming, Crying, Throwing Up. Arguably one of my favorite books of the year, though it did not change the trajectory of my life. I just really, really love this author's books. You guys know how I feel about Elise Bryant. If you've been here long enough, I've read all of her books, and this one was one that she released last year at the beginning of the year, and I read it when I got back home. So good, such a cute concept. I would highly recommend it, especially like during the holiday season. Like, that would have been a perfect time to read it, like November, December, because the plot revolves around holidays. But yeah, I really, really liked it. I haven't read an Elise Bryant book that I have not liked. Like, she's kind of, in my opinion, the queen of YA romance. And she's so underrated. Like, I don't understand. Another Alice Oseman book, This Winter. Okay, so this is technically, it's a solitaire novella, but it's also Heartstopper related. So we're gonna put it somewhere. We're gonna put it somewhere. I think this one had me screaming, crying, throwing up, from what I remember. It's a really cute novella for the holiday season, but it also will get you really emotional, just like any other Alice Oseman book. Legendborn changed the trajectory of my life. If you're new here, hi. I'm obsessed with Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and I read it for the 3rd time this past year, to annotate it for my friend. And fun fact, my friend just gave me the book that she finally annotated for me. She gave it to me about a month ago, and I'm finally reading it. Should I surprise you guys with it? I'm going to surprise you guys with it for my book wrap up that's coming next month. But yeah, I'm finally reading the book that she annotated for me. It's going pretty well. I'm enjoying it. Heavy by Key Slayman. I think this changed the trajectory of my life as well. I read this for class, a different class than I read these 2 from. But yeah, I read this memoir and it was so good. I like thinking about it. It's making me so emotional. I can't, like, it's so good. I bought a physical copy just so I could go back and annotate it. It's just a really, really good book. Like, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, I'm not one to read memoirs or biographies, not by choice. But this one, I don't know, it just really hit different. Maybe because it was from like a Black person. But I like the way that Keith Layman writes his life story in this book. Like I kind of wish that the book was longer, because I just wasn't tired of his life story and the way that he sees himself and the way that he portrays himself to his mom. Because in the book, he is writing in second person to his mother. And it's just like, it's just so interesting. I really enjoyed it. I finished reading it in December and I think I gave it 5 stars. The last 2 months of the year, I didn't really read much because again, it was final season. I didn't have time, but what I read, I did end up enjoying. Okay, and the last book is an Alice Oseman book. What a surprise. I Was Born This Way. Oh no, Lady Gaga, hello? I was born for this. This also changed the trajectory of my life. This book is not in the Heartstopper universe. However, it is, I feel like, one of her best books. It's also one of her most underrated. And I don't know why. I feel like this book in the society that we live in today is a must read. It should be a required reading, especially for like young people. This book talks a lot about fandom culture and how terribly it can impact not just the fan, but the celebrity. And it shows it from 2 perspectives of a fan and the celebrity that the person is a fan of. And it's just so interesting. Like, she does a really good job talking about mental health anyway, Alice Oseman. Like, she does a really good job of doing that in all of her books. But for this one, it really hit different. Again, I genuinely feel like if I read this when I was younger, my perspective on life would have changed. Because now as an adult, I realize how weird in a way fandom culture is. Like, I am a fan of many things, do not get me wrong. Some might even say, if you follow me on Twitter, I am a part of a few fandoms till this day. However, the way that fandom culture is perceived and in some way initiated, it's kind of like scary, very, very terrifying. Because at the end of the day, it's not that deep. And as an adult, I realized this, but as a kid, you couldn't tell me nothing. Like, reading this book, especially in the fans' perspective, took me back to how I was in like middle school and high school. And it really shows that, like, wow, I had to take like a moment to like reflect. And that's what this book did for me the most. I feel like out of all her books, this one did that the most for me in terms of like reflecting on who I was versus who I am, who I stand, who I am a fan of, why I'm a fan of them, how this benefits me. Yeah, I just really, really, really like this book. I highly recommend this one, to be honest. Like, yes, it's not a part of the Heartstopper universe, but I really, really, really think everyone should read this book. And I guess that's it. This is my tier ranking. Boom. I think I'm confident in all of this. Like I said, I read a lot of good books this year. That was the goal. I wanted to read books that left me feeling good things, positive things, which is why there's barely anything down here, which I'm happy about. I don't like hating on books, okay? I don't. I like reading things that I enjoy, as does everyone. So I'm glad that I was able to read books that I did genuinely like. So yeah. I think that's it. That is the end of this video. If you enjoyed this, thank you. If you'd like to follow me on my social media, here it is. I mostly interact on Twitter, but if you'd like to follow me on all the other apps such as TikTok, Instagram, hell, even my storygraph, that should be linked down in the description below. If you want to keep up with what I'm reading and see my reviews from every book in this list, you can follow me on Storygraph. I don't have a Goodreads. A few people are asking that. I don't have a Goodreads, so sorry. I have a Storygraph. Happy New Year, everyone. I can't wait to see what this channel becomes in the new year. You guys have been very supportive and positive since I made this channel back in the summer, and I really appreciate it. I hope we continue to have fun and grow this year, especially on this channel. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye, everyone.